Okay, great. Greetings, everyone. We will start, I think, maybe in a few minutes. Welcome, everyone. Bogdan, I hope you can hear us, right? Bogdan, Samridhi. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Excellent. Again, webinar featured by MS Teams. I really did not know. So I was like, okay, the attendees are stuck. So we were like, okay, fine. You are joined. So, like, anyways, hello. The feature is funny. Anyways. So I think we can start right away because we were expecting the Panshu Singh to come in, but he is not coming for some reasons. I don't know. And there was one more startup. Anyways, this discussion is gonna be fascinating for this hour at least. So the recording is started. So let me also begin with the introductions without any inconvenience. So good evening, everyone. We begin with the Bharat Pacific AI Week. My name is Abhivardhan. I'm the founder and chairperson of the Indian Society of AI and Law. Um, since incorporation, ISAIL has been a forum where we have started with discussing ideas around AI and law and policy in a more inclusive way to see what could be the possibilities ahead. And that's the approach we have taken. Uh, Now we have pivoted our way to focus on industry realities and see what can we help about because a lot of industry issues arise around, you know, uh, how AI is being implemented, if a use case is viable or not. And we thought, okay, we had done already a few sessions like on AI and geopolitics, discussing the strategic implications. And now we would like to focus more on issues around education, fintech, and banking. So let me introduce the relevant experts and people. We also will introduce a startup which is coming up today. So we have Kailash Chauhan, who's the chair of the Research Ethics, R&D committee. We also have Bogdan Grigorescu from the Advisory Council. We have Samridhi Jain, a very talented legal tech enthusiast and also content writer, pretty much into, how legal tech is working in India. She has a good treasure of expertise and knowledge in that. And yeah, and we have Bogdan. And let me introduce the startup we have for today. We have Nirmal Patel from SmartPaperAI. I think Nirmal will introduce her best to himself. I think let's begin with the session. More people will be joining shortly, so I think we'll have them. But since we have all the people, I think we should go ahead right away. So, what's the Kailash? So I think uh, let's try it in this way. I think Kailash and Samriddhi has have some presentation. Then I think once they do that, we can maybe go ahead. So one way could be is that let's have an introduction from Nirmal himself. So Nirmal, let's first understand from your perspective. If you can hear us. Um, what is Smart Paper AI per se? Because obviously we'll talk about your use case first. I'm thinking of that in that direction, and then we can go into the exploration part. To discuss more around issues on, what's the state of AI and education related use cases which are coming up these days. So I think we can take you from yours and then we can go ahead. So you can introduce yourself and then maybe we can start. You can even share a screen if you want to completely.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the introduction and hi everyone, good evening. Nice to be here. And I have been in the education technology sector since 2012. So I've done different things, started out as a developer myself, then went on to build more products, do consulting, data science, and recently also working with everything new that has come out. You might be seeing a lot of new trends in AI in education, but it's actually something that's quite old. And with the advent of LLM, the approaches have changed. But a lot of the things that you might see out there, people have been thinking about those kind of technologies for a long time, have tried to build those technologies in different ways. Some things are as old as 20 years old of technologies to teach language, what have you. So there is a lot out there, and of course, what's there right now, it's also a lot of it is experimental, a lot of it is being tested in the classroom for efficacy. I can share a few studies, which showed very interesting results. Um, and there are two sides, both sides of using AI, and it's a very experimental thing. So I'm happy to share more things, but Abhivardhan, let me know what's good.
Sure. Um, so I think what will Kailash and Samridhi be happy to do before they start with their PPT thing, and then we discuss ideas around the landscape. I think let's talk about the use case of yours, and maybe one or two case studies we wish. Maybe Bogdan might cross question a bit since he's definitely a technology veteran who understands you know what kind of machine learning solutions are coming up and what hype is around and what are the realities. So I think it would be great to start with new use cases, few case studies, and then maybe we can, I think, take it that way.
Great. Yeah, so I can share more about Smart Paper and what exactly Smart Paper does. And it's a little bit, innovating backwards, so to say. And we started looking at paper digital integration in education. And if you see, more and more education is becoming digital, right? People want to just do more things digitally that you do in classroom. If you know, one laptop per child project, where the idea was to give technology to every child and hope that it does wonders. Although the project failed, my colleague at my company who's also actively participating in their project. So it's kind of interesting with AI. We are seeing a second wave of why we should be giving technology to every learner. Of course, in the beginning, everyone is so excited, but as people find out more things, we'll see how things go. For Smart Paper, we saw an area where, it was kind of being neglected. So if you look at any classroom, specifically, if you see younger children, they're always on paper, right? They're writing something on paper. You're doing note taking, so many things. And it's one thing that was that happens everywhere, no matter it's backwards area, like with hi-fi, everyone just works on paper. And so we felt that the paper, or our hypothesis so far is that it's not going away for a while, at least for a while, until like everyone can write on screens. And so we started building this technology to connect what's on paper with the digital system. And the obvious part that we started with was paper assessments, where you click photo of a paper worksheet and all of the data is digitized. And there are a bunch of companies out there, not too many, but there are a few companies, maybe 10 or 15 companies out there really going into this space, understanding the value of paper. And the technology that we tried to build was something that's different from other startups. Is it's very robust technology for scale. And so the way we developed the technology initially was by doing pilots and by improving the accuracy of the AI. And it's quite interesting story how we developed the technology. So we started uh, with a model which was trained using adults data. And as soon as we tested it on children, it just didn't work, right? It's like, and so you learn that it's like, 101. If your training data does not match, of your AI does not match with your intended audience, then you're gonna have like a huge problem. And so we fixed that, we collected data, and then we built an AI that was really strong to or robust, I would say, which is a key metric for us, where we were working with organizations that would work in rural areas where and you have a paper where it could be handled, it could be damaged, like a lot of you don't have proper lighting, you're capturing the page in any kind of environment. There's a lot of complexities. You don't have, like, if you look at OMR sheet technology, I mean, you just have scans, much easier to do. But when you have huge noise in the data, and then how do you capture what's important. How do you make it work at that scale? And so it was good enough to scale in one of the big states in India, in Rajasthan state. And so now we work with the state government where our software SmartPaperAI is used for checking nearly, I would say, 4 to 5 crore worksheets per year in their system. And that is for about 50 lakh students. And that gives immediate access to immediate access of competency data to the government, which is one of the key things based on national education policy. There is a lot of focus on competency based learning. And so also to understand, what competencies children have. And even it's interesting how the government has also given this, use this technology to engage parents of children who come to government schools, with report cards data of how to foster more learning at home and showing them the competencies of their kids. So this is and so it's making like a social impact in a way by the technology being accessible to so many people. If you have a really high end digital intervention which only works on laptops, you can never reach these many number of people. So I visited a government school recently and the computers were getting dust. And so it is really hard to make an impact in the public system, and that's where we felt that by working with uh, a human workflow that is out there, it's quite popular, and how to build technology around it to support people rather than asking them to change their process. And so we built something that kind of wrapped around what was existing, and it just scaled because we were piloting with 2000 students. From there we just went to 50 lakh students. And so I believe it was like the robustness of technology and the ease of use in the field and scalability and ability to impact every last person, which is what my focus has become now, is equitable impact of how do we ensure we may have great technology, but how do we ensure that it has equitable impact. So yeah, that's
That's great. That's great. So I I think yeah, I think there's a minor echo. You could just unmute for a short while. So okay, I think it's fine now. Okay. So yeah, let's take some questions. I think it's a good exposition to begin with. So I think let's start with Kailash. Okay, so Kailash,
See,
Samridhi, you can introduce, you can take some questions, and then I think we'll go to Bogdan. Let's make it a bit
hello.
conversational. Yeah.
Hello everyone. My name is Kailash. I'm chairperson of the R&D committee of ISAIL. It was a very nice presentation, and we would like to proceed with some questions regarding your startup, and then after that, Samriddhi will be giving a presentation followed by my presentation uh, on a startup from IIT Madras. So I would like to ask Mr. Nirmal that what is your specific use case? In which sector or which category? What is your target audience?
so our solution is for education. So and specifically for school education and in the assessment part. So a lot of assessments that happen on paper. So our solution enables people to digitize the paper sheets by taking a photo. And we use computer vision to digitize the data of learning.
Okay, great.
Nirmal, there's a few questions. Does it require an internet connection?
Um, we have two versions. One version does, our recent version does not. So we ported the AI on completely on the mobile. So that's possible now.
This is a good selling point. And little bit of a non-technical question, but why is the Why are the people excited? You mentioned at the beginning that's how you started. People get excited, and I mean, we know that with all the marketing going around, sometimes that excitement is just misguided. Sometimes it's not. But specifically in your area, when you faced that excitement at the beginning, why were the people excited? What drove them to be excited?
So I think there has been a lookout for a technology where if you put a kid on a digital tutor and then you expect them to learn. I think people have been trying to make this. Earlier it was adaptive learning. Uh, Before that I think was cognitive tutor. Huge. I don't know about the hype then, but adaptive learning, there was a huge hype in the industry. Several companies tried to make it big, just did not deliver on their promises. And the idea was similar, that you have a computer system which understands the child better, by collecting data and then gives them all these resources. And so I think it's this time it's kind of old genie in new bottle, but maybe the one of the actual issues in the field is there aren't enough qualified teachers. And so people are always looking for, like we are understaffed, we don't have people, like how can we have something, so we have so many kids who need to learn. So I think there is a real shortage of teacher, and in America, I think in India also. And I think that drives, I mean, that's the hope, that you could make something of that level, but people are still learning what's possible.
That's good. I think Bogdan, we'll take more questions from you in the go, because obviously once we have that PPT discussed or as an idea thing, I think Nirmal will be happy to add more as
But
promised.
if you
Yeah,
see
yeah,
the driver is a social need. It is, of course, education, but really is a social need. People just don't have, the young people, students don't have enough qualified staff, teachers, assistants, and so on to guide them, to help them learn. And this is a major gap that the technology can fill. Of course, not totally. Technology is never going to replace like this kind of people, but it does help a lot, with the scaling, with the self-serving, with students being more independent. Now they want to be independent, but they can't, and now there's a big help. These kind of things, and that's why it's important that it's available offline too. If you depend on the internet connection, that's a barrier, let's face it, right? You need other type of equipment, subscriptions. What if the connection is not that good? What if power cuts? What if this or that, in the context on India, but not just in India, right? And so being available offline, at least with the most important features, maybe not everything, but the most important, those features that really matter, that really gives them that independence and autonomy to go and do things and ask questions and get guidance and so on, as long as the product is, well designed and they get help when they're stuck, or, like that goes for any product. The way I see it, it is feeling a social need here, um, that starts in education, but clearly it can be scaled to other areas as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would add, we did a study with one of our partners in the US. So we designed a math tutor kind of an experience with LLM, and it was given to kids. I think they showed it to 10 kids. And I know what, like few of them were saying that, they liked it. And these were, I think, about middle school or 10th grade kids. And they were saying that now there is something I can ask questions to. Earlier, there wasn't, like, you couldn't ask questions. I mean, you might be able to Google, but they felt that there was sort of a different thing with technology. So, yeah.
Google search has become rubbish, by the way. I just faced like basic issues right now. Gives me links from US when I'm clearly my IP address is from UK. Like that's easy, man. Didn't used to happen before until you got to maybe page 3, 4 of searches, which is fine. But now it's page 1 and not the bottom of page 1. We're talking middle of the page 1 of searches, which is tremendously bad, really is tremendously bad. That's the thing. LLMs, generative LLMs, so LLMs used for generative AI should not be used for searching. They are not good of searching. They are not good on searching. Uh, and we see that these bad results in Google in the last 2 or so years. So by the way, I think if you have a good search feature, simple, not too complicated with not a lot of options for your product, that will be a very huge selling point, because finding things that you are after fast and easy, and in this case is not everything under the face of the universe. It's really about education, about this or that subject, so it's really much is not that wide. And also with the so-called offline search, which is a mature function. That is one of the core functions that I would I would like to see in conjunction with everything else that the product does. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
seen people. Yeah, I was just gonna add that there has been. I know some people who are also trying to do offline LLMs for education, and I think they're trying to develop these kits that can be deployed in really remote areas. And I think they work with some foundations, and it's kind of interesting. I think people are attempting that. We'll see how far it goes.
That's great. Uh, so okay. Let's have. Yeah, yeah. I think somebody should ask. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So, firstly, thank you, everyone, for like a particular legal challenge that you found yourself stuck, like further to do a particular legal challenge.
I think it's a bit unclear from your end. I don't know for some
Yeah.
reason.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I think it seems better now. Go on, go on.
Yeah, I was just asking, what has been like one full challenge, if there has been, in terms of this made you feel stuck, like you couldn't take the next step in your startup? That's clear.
So she's
Okay.
she's trying to refer to what could have been one of the major challenges to implement it, or maybe to make it, yeah, maybe practically implying. I think she's referring to that question.
I think it's just about data privacy and the laws. I think the India case, is very different. People are not that. um, I think we aren't stuck yet, but I believe when we go into the US market, the laws there classify handwriting data as a PII, which is kind of a problem to process that, to store that, and manage that. So that, and recently also at some competition, there was one of the feedback that we got, that you guys need to think more, because it's much different laws about handwriting data in the US compared to India. So I would consider later.
Okay, Nirmal, how do you see the potential of contribution of artificial intelligence in the Indian education sector? How conceivable is the market when we talk about the adoption of new technology and AI in the education sector in India? Have you faced any challenge in India, like uh, any challenge as a startup in AI sector in AI field in education sector as a whole? If you can flag any major challenges.
I think so. If you talk about edtech in India, you only have to look at Byju's, right, to see like what can happen and how you can how you and but that so and I think that is also other companies are facing challenges because during COVID, and I think this is specific to COVID, is during COVID everyone edtech became so much more important, and after I think there has been a different story at least for edtech people. And about artificial intelligence, I feel like it is really specific to use cases. And if people are creating technology that helps, for example, I will give you an example. You can generate lesson plans using LLMs. That's useful for teachers. It's very useful for people who are new to teaching. They don't know how to manage a class. So that technology will work for them. It's accessible. You can do it in mobile phone. And so I think there are some factors that enable some technologies to be more successful in India, and scale is one of them. And second thing I feel for AI is that the amount of accuracy you need is could be different for different use cases. And so if you're looking at, for example, like exams that are high stakes, so if you try to apply an AI there, the stakes are too high and people will try to go for human processes versus other areas where you might be able to do. There are different ways people are building different kind of technologies. I also think that education is a social kind of not constant thing, and it is something where also like how people's aspirations match with what technology can provide, because um, I see increasingly there will be people who will say that children should be able to do things without the aid of technology. If you consider calculators, right, and you don't give calculators right away, you teach mathematics and then you give calculators. So similarly, I think people are trying to figure out in education sector how and when to use AI. I think like they all have say that it's here to stay, but how to really use it for the maximum benefit is something that I think still being discovered. So, and I would just add, like, there was a very interesting study that just made so many rounds in education circles. So title, can generative AI harm learning? Or things as generative AI can harm learning, and it doesn't really harm, but the study was set up like this. So you had few different classrooms. One classroom got a lecture on some topic. Another classroom got a GPT-4, just base GPT-4, or a chatbot which you could ask anything. And a third classroom got a GPT, which was kind of not, which was designed to not give away answers, right? If you ask it answers, then no, you have to do it. This is how you do it. Makes you do it, gets you through that cycle. And they did two assessments. So one assessment was right after this session, and one assessment was after some time. And the assessment where you test right after the session, you see that people who practiced with this GPT bot that doesn't give away answer, that acts like a teacher, that led to good improvement. But when you look at one other final exam, there is no impact from any chatbot. In fact, the students do as good as if you didn't have a chatbot. And the worst part is that for the chatbot that gave away all the answers, it was GPT-4 just based, they gave away all the answers. The students perform poorly, worse, significantly worse in statistical way compared to those who did not even have chatbot. So if you give a chatbot that gives away all the answers, it can also give negative effects. And so this is very dangerous, right? And then you suddenly have a generation that doesn't know how to do fundamental things. And then, it's a big risk because AI is developed by someone. And so I think it's definitely being weighed in multiple ways how to use AI.
I think
Great.
Samriddhi, you wanted to, yeah. So sorry. I think Samriddhi, you wanted to ask a question. So I think if you can try. Yeah.
Yeah, I hopefully I'm clear, like my voice is clear enough, then I can ask. If not, then Abhivajan can ask.
I think it's clear. Give it a try. Yeah.
Yeah, you are audible now.
Okay. So my question was, what's the best user feedback you've received to date, which has probably changed the trajectory of your startup, or say how you do things. It could be positive or negative.
So I think our idea of how the technology would be changed quite a lot over time. So we started by building, like we felt that there's a lot of research on why you should be handwriting for better education. So we believed that look, paper is not gonna go away. So so the way we started, there is a technology. Where you could write something on paper. It's kind of these like these micro QR codes and some kind of heavy technology. So we started with a solution that was more high tech, but then we learned that the pen to do that thing costs 5,000 rupees. Now if you look at a child, they might just throw the pen and pen breaks, and it's very expensive solution. So we just learned. So as soon as we took our technology idea to the field, we learned that it was difficult to scale. So then we changed the idea to something else, like a little bit different process. We learned that there were some issues with that model, and so we changed the technology slightly again. So we kind of optimized it, as we took it. And a lot of startup people say that if you have a beautiful idea, just like bring it to the real world and like just collide it with reality, and you just immediately learn the challenges of how to make it more scalable or acceptable.
Yeah.
It's yeah, Kailash,
Right.
go on.
I think.
I think
Okay.
yeah. So sorry, Samridhi. Yeah, please.
No, no. I was just saying, if anyone else has questions, feel free to ask them on the chat.
Okay, so I think Bogdan, I think we can go through you. Maybe you might have some technical points or questions to ask. Maybe we can discuss that. Then I think we can, yeah.
Um, is the solution using public clouds or is it public clouds premise deployable too?
Yeah, right now it's in AWS. And it's interesting when we are having conversation with people from around the world. So they are asking to deploy the AI in their region. So they'll want to keep their data in their region. Right now we're only working with Indian organizations, but the governments definitely have uh, in a need that the data must remain India, and see also security of data center, so on.
Is it using the Amazon Bedrock for the models?
Oh, no, we mostly have vision models and much smaller size. So, yeah, we use some of the Microsoft APIs for handwriting recognition. We are using Claude or GPT, those for grading questions, right?
But the solution runs on AWS, right? So
Yes.
ChatGPT runs on Azure only. Claude, I'm not sure if it's one cloud or another or all. So essentially, if say in the cases where ChatGPT is used, that means calls from AWS to Azure to consume that model, which means different terms of services because Azure has the Microsoft terms of services specific for Azure OpenAI, for ChatGPT, which is not Azure OpenAI, but it's also Azure OpenAI. It's really messy. And Microsoft, it's a data controller. specifically if Azure OpenAI is used, which is the ChatGPT for Azure, controlled by Microsoft. That is the main difference. It's not controlled by OpenAI, it's controlled by Microsoft. Microsoft is a data controller in that case, because everything that goes through Microsoft products in terms of data, Microsoft states that it can be used for training Azure OpenAI range of products. Not ChatGPT though, and not the so-called pilot, but Azure OpenAI also has a pilot, copilot. So that means the students' data could be used for training Microsoft AI products without the students knowing. Heck, without you knowing. So that's an implication number one, legal implication number one, that it's multiple data controllers and data processors, not just one data controller and multiple processors. So your company is a data processor, but of course it's a data controller too. I think this is obvious and normal. What is not obvious is that Microsoft is a data controller too, in the cases where your product has to use Azure OpenAI or possibly ChatGPT too. Possibly. Certainly, if the students use Office 365, that data is used to train Azure OpenAI models, but when they will also use your product in their activities, then there's a chances there that that data gets collated and go via Microsoft 365, not directly, but indirectly, because they do device fingerprinting most likely, and therefore they can connect the dots. And therefore, even if you take guardrails that, you know, we ring fence and it stays within, say, AWS, that probably cannot be really ring fence and stay on AWS only. Now, I don't know what AWS or Amazon does with it. Do they train the doorbells, smart doorbells? I guess not, but I'm just saying you got to ask these questions and probably get Abhivardan to read the TOSs for you, translate from those cryptic expressions, pages on end, so that you can figure it out, you know, what are your liabilities? What are your company liabilities? They may be unexpectedly complex and high, or they may be unexpectedly low and simple. It's not a given that they are bad or good, unless you have to understand those terms of services in the context of essentially how the product is used, the use cases that I guess you have them very well lined up, because that's how you develop the product based on the use cases. But that's where the missing link is. Strongly advised to get specialist lawyers looking at it, just to advise. Of course, this is not a case of going to trial or anything, but to understand those terms and conditions in respect to the your products, because laws are changing. They will keep changing for a few years at least going forward in possibly unexpected ways, and it's, you never know what could that mean. Yes, you are not a big company, you don't have the same impact as, say, a big marketplace, for sure, but on the other hand, a big marketplace can survive a big fine. You can't. Even if the fine is 10 times smaller, it's not 100 million, it's 10 million, can't really survive that. Why a company that is 20 billion market capitalization can survive 100 million fine? That's a key difference. Yeah. So I guess in the end, it's know very well, very precisely, what are the feedback loops that the product creates when it's being used in the various use cases, have a very clear view of that. Where are those feedback loops closing, supposedly? At least have a very good idea about that. Uh, and uh, and what does that mean in terms of legal liabilities? If at all there's a legal liability there, it doesn't mean it is, but you can't know until you look into it.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta read ChatGPT's terms of service. We are using ChatGPT API and Claude API. We are not using Azure API specifically for ChatGPT, but I will definitely read it.
It doesn't matter. For ChatGPT, at least that I know, it runs on Azure. So every single API call that goes to OpenAI, let's say, essentially it goes to Microsoft because it has to go to Azure because that's the only place that they run by contract exclusively. So you have to consider that actually who you're dealing with here is not OpenAI only, it's more Microsoft than OpenAI.
Okay.
Kailash, go on.
Okay, great. So I think we don't have any more question. So we will move forward with the presentation by Samridhi. So
Yeah, sure.
uh,
Yeah, sure.
do you want me to share the screen, Samridhi?
Yeah, would be great if you could share the screen.
Oh, okay. Let me try.
And I think we can take more questions until the PPT is visible.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, after the PPT is done, I mean. I think we also have Prabhat from the committee. Hi, Prabhat. Uh, so I think, yeah, I mean, what Bogdan put as a point, of course, is something which can be discussed later. But yeah, it's actually an issue with, OpenAI related because most of these GenAI services, their access guidelines, their terms and conditions, their bylaws, they're just not clearly available. So that's definitely a dilemma for sure. Okay, I think the PPT is visible, so Kailash, you can go on. I think Samriddhi, go on.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Floor is
Right.
yours,
So I'll
Samridhi.
basically be thank you so much. So I'll basically be starting, and then Kailash will take over with some information about a startup from IIT Madras. So we wanted to talk a little bit about AI in education in general and what use cases could potentially arise and specific sort of areas in which we can build up. And yeah, Kailash, will you go to the next slide? So I think one of the main points, at least from my research around this space, is that education needs, like, to be able to use AI in education, we need to be able to figure out models that are scalable, right? Instead of models that are always prioritized. Sorry, my bad. So the main reason that I found out during my research that we need to use cases that are scalable. Um, and achieve educational priorities at scale with lower costs. Because when you scale, your costs eventually sort of reduce. And what Nirmal also spoke about, scalability in terms of also equitable impact, made a lot of sense. So during my research, I found that all students learn differently. That's not how the education systems across the world have been built as per everyone's learning, patterns. So someone learns better visually, someone learns better through text, etc., right? And I think AI can be a really good tool to be able to help us do that because a lot of people learn through video, right? I'm in law school, so what ends up happening is that I end up learning better from YouTube than class lectures, right? And that's just the case with a lot of students most students don't want to admit it. But I think that becomes the case with every different individual. A lot of people learn through charts and infographics. They have to draw maps, or they learn through codes, right? And AI can just make that entire process easier. Why did the entire notion of having cards, uh, different cards, and having like mnemonics written on it become popular? Because people learn differently, and there's no one structure to taking in information. So the different applications of education that I found out were content design, content delivery, assessments, back and support. So yeah, feel free to stop me in the middle if you have any questions. Um, so I think first of all, we would need to essentially talk of content design, which would be how is the content framed for it to be delivered, right? And this needs to be framed differently for different groups who consume content in different ways. And since AI algorithms are able to scan large pieces of data, um, you get to essentially
I think you seem on mute, Samridhi. Yeah, no problem.
you hear me now?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Right. So let's get to content delivery. Then content delivery can also have a bunch of use cases within itself, right? And again, it would depend on how we want the content delivered for different groups. I think within the entire target audience of itself, there would be separate groups and how people would take in information. And content delivery means substitution of classroom instruction and support for students. So we can learn from anywhere, right? That's the main point of AI, that we're able to sit, uh, anywhere in the world and be able to take that information. I think AI has a big role to play in democratization of information, and that's exactly why also considered to be one of those things that because you have it, you're able to then scale it enough across countries and in the global landscape, and that's how you can also customize learning. So I think the main aspect of content delivery would be customization. And when we look at all of these things that I spoke about, that people learn differently, I think that's where it really comes into play. That you can really give customized way of learning in universities, in colleges, in schools, right? Because we're always taught in a particular way, we're tested in a particular way. And I think the next point is about assessment, right? And what Nirmal also mentioned about how assessments happen these days. So there's a process of how assessments can be automated, and I'm sure you can speak more about it, Nirmal, in terms of how you're grading homework and how you're grading tests that are conducted, right? And the other bit around assessment would be that it's easy to replace this because it's quite it's quite it's pattern based, right? You would be able to feed in data into systems, and it can easily recognize patterns, which is what pretty much AI does, right? And then it'll be able to do these assessments quicker, also at scale, and there'll be better evaluations. In fact, what I was doing at a recent internship of mine is figuring out if we could help pass the LLM entrance examination. And I will withhold the results as of now because I'll talk about it later. Um, but what I think we overestimate the capabilities of AI, and we think that it's able to achieve a lot of things, but in fact, it gets a lot of things wrong as well. And I think what he said about children answering incorrectly when using chatbots versus when not using them is actually a real life. It's actually like true because uh, it like it doesn't ChatGPT essentially does not make your output better, but it will help you sort of I think deliver education in a better way. Do we have questions at this point? All right, no problem. Um, when it comes to back and support, um, what I see AI give me when I generative um, right, and usage of fluff words. But when it comes to feedback and support, I think a lot of times this could also be. I think education is not just restricted to formal education. So especially content. It would also fall in, say, internship when we're doing an internship, but essentially learning, right? So I think during in that spaces, and a lot of times we don't end up getting feedback. So I think if there are systems built to just give us feedback based on the work that we're doing, um, that would give us a lot of context in terms of work, right? Because sometimes when we don't get feedback, we're just like, um, did we even perform the work to the standards that we were required to adhere? So that pretty much would be on the side of feedback and support. And depending on one of the studies that I also happened to look while researching, was that customized and quick feedback to students possible with AI versus humans, right? Humans would have to spend a lot of time in analyzing, but AI would be able to do that much quicker and help. And I think it's also great for teachers that they're able to that they can take support from the and then deliver. So the delivery could be from a human, but support can be taken from an AI tool. I think that's what I ended up finding. If you have questions, please let me know, and I think Kailash will take over from here in terms of identifying unhyped cases, talking about AI for Bharat.
So I would be speaking about AI for Bharat. It's a blanket initiative from IIT Madras supported by Google. Their major focus is in the linguistic sector in India, and they are working on different projects. So before going into the startup, I would like to talk about the what actually the problem is and what problem they are trying to solve. As we know, India is a linguistically and socially and culturally very diverse country, and every state had their own different languages. Even under the Constitution of India, there are 22 languages. So, with the rapid developments in AI, specifically in generative AI in last few years, has resulted in the adoption of Gen AI in the education sector. As we know that the major source of knowledge and information at the international level is in the English, and in India, it's in Hindi. So there is a problem in our country that all the content is not available in all the languages. So let's say, for example, uh, we have Gemini. So under Gemini, it support around 40 plus languages. Out of 40 languages, it support 9 Indian languages. And let's say there are school kids somewhere in the country who do not speak English, plus who do not speak any of those 9 Indian languages. They belong to the other remaining 7 languages who speak any language which which Gemini do not support. So in that case, they can't. This technology is not accessible to them. So language is not just like a communication barrier, it's also acting as a technology barrier as well. So this is the whole problem where the this startup is trying to focus on. So what is AI for Bharat? It's a foster open source innovation in building and deploying the AI solutions. This is a part of Google's first AI for social good coherent, and it is supported by also NGO called Pratham Books and the Ek Step Foundation as well. So what they are doing is first they are aggregating all the available text in the regional languages, and they kickstart AI models that help in data creation. In the next step, creatively collecting the data from different places and then building and releasing the translation models in Indian languages. So let's talk about some of their products, which have a huge capability and the potential to use its application in the education sector. The first product is Shunya. Shunya is an open source AI powered data annotation platform, which is integrated workforce management system. AI for Bharat is this Shunya is used for creating open source dataset, and they have a repository which in turn is used for training open source machine learning models being developed by AI for Bharat. So it acts as a repository to train their models, which collect the data from all the languages, all the major languages spoken in India. Then their next product is Chitralekha. Chitralekha is an open source AI powered video translation. This is a joint venture from AI for Bharat and Ekstep Foundation. It supports 12 languages for transcription. 22 official languages are supported for translation, and 14 languages are supported for automated voice over voiceover. Transcription editing of audio files of MP3 format is also supported. Then next is Anuvad. Anuvad is a product that's is applicable in judicial field, legal field. This product convert the official judicial document from one language to another language. Then Indic Trans 2. Indic Trans 2 is the first open source transformer-based multilingual NTM model that support the high quality translation across all 22 scheduled Indic languages. Then next is language generation. AI system that can generate natural language text can aid user in variety of writing tasks like summarization, headline, caption generation, paraphrasing, grammar correction, etc. Then next is AI for Bharat, speech to speech, as clear from the title that it converts speech from one language to the another language. Then next is Indic text to speech. It convert text from one language to the text to the same language, or text from one language to the text to the other language. Then we have in Indic BRAT. Indic BRAT is a multilingual sequence to sequence pre-trained model focusing on Indic language and English. You can use Indic BRAT model to build natural language generation application for Indian languages for fine-tuning the model with the supervised training data for tasks like machine translation, summarization, and question generation, etc. Then the last is Indic speech to text conformer. This conformer is based ASR model containing 30 plus million parameter to support the real-time ASR system for Indian languages. So all these products are have a huge capability. Like they can take all they have application, they can be used to create the like avatar in multiple language. They can use to create virtual teacher. They can use to create virtual tutor. They can use to convert content from one audio to another, or maybe one document from another. They can one language from another language. They can be used in all the form, whether it's text, whether it's audio, whether it's video. They all are capable of converting text from one language to another language. Let's come to the one of the most important question. Like, already there are a lots of product which are capable of doing this. Like, for example, ChatGPT can do most of this function. Gemini can do most of this function. And then Google Cloud do also offer some of the tasks that have been discussed that these products are capable to do. These all the products are been trained locally and on the local language. So the plus point of training this product on local language is that the persons who are working behind this project know the dialects of the language, the quality of the language, quality of the data, because it's very important for a product, especially generative AI and LLMs, that the quality of the data should be high, the quantity should be more, but it should be of various varieties. And there should be avoidance of including the substandards data to train these models, because they have considered all these factors, and it's easy in India to negotiate with the person or the entities who hold these data, so that there will be not any legal issues like copyright and infringement disputes would not arise. Because of these factors, the output of these product is more reliable and less biased and more human friendly. It's a settled proposition that the better the quality of the data and more the variety of the data, better the output of the generative AI or the LLM. Because the on what data the large language model is trained, the output depend on those factors. So locally trained, these models would definitely be less biased and will give better output or the better result and create more value in the country. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nirmal, if you wish to add something, feel free to add. Maybe to you, maybe something we can discuss. I think Bogdan can add. Yeah,
We still have time, right? Yeah.
yeah, maybe 10 minutes or something.
Why use generative AI models for translation? Translation is a solved problem. It's been done very well at scale. True, not in all the languages, but in a great number of languages for more than a few years now. Well before ChatGPT, even before GPT-1, even before 2018. Not real-time translation. That's not a problem that's solved even today. But static translation, the problem is solved. What is not, it has to scale to the languages that are less represented, but still spoken by many people. India is one case where there's many languages and some of them are spoken by tens of millions, even more than 100 million people. Sometimes, say, I don't know, Tamil. Tamil is spoken by close to 100 million people. And it also has a lot of cultural artifacts going back many hundreds of years. So it's important. But it doesn't have to use generative AI to translate. It needs all the data, of course, but the algos exist. The algorithms exist already for, I would say, 10 years solid. 10 years solid. They didn't change that much in the last 10 years. From the design perspective, they did scale a lot and they did gain in efficiency for sure, but it's the same paradigm. The generative AI can be used for translation, but it's way more expensive. It has more risks compared to the existing methods of translation. They are conversational. That's the marked advantage because you can just write gibberish in various ways and it still translate that. I mean, I'm not sure how accurately, but it can do it. While with the existing translation, you have to be a little bit more precise. So conversational, but really limited in that compared to LLMs for and GPT models. That is a difference. So the accessibility to the end user is greater with GPT, but the price point is higher, much higher. That's paid through data, as is the other model, but in the case of GPT, that goes to other parts of generative stuff that has nothing to do with translation, because GPT is a generalist model. So translation is one function that can do, but there are dozens of other core functions that they do. It's not specialized. And is being used through APIs by so many organizations, big and small. So essentially that data that you say I'm translating from Tamil to Hindi, eventually will end up training some English-based models in unforeseen ways. In the end, it will make its way there. And you may ask how. Well, because it's being used by a Tamil organization, then translates into Hindi, that is used by a government organization of the same model, you know, with different settings for sure, and different life cycle for sure, but nonetheless, it's going into the same GPT-4. And then that output is used in other ways. So all these outputs are influenced by translating from Tamil. It is. How much? Nobody can assert how much. Sometimes a lot, sometimes a little, but never zero. That doesn't happen with specialist models that are not generative. Why? Because that data and that output doesn't go for other purposes out. It's all translation between, say, Tamil and Hindi, let's say. It stays like that. Yes, it can go to this government organization, this and that, but since this is only, that model is only used for translation and is localized, it's kind of fenced, which doesn't happen with generative AI. That's not fenced. It's actually not possible to ring fence it, at least not today. We don't know tomorrow. Yeah. So there's a question is why use generative AI for translation when this is a solved problem? Even for Tamil, Hindi, other languages, I'm not privy, but there are dozens and dozens of languages in India that deserves a lot more attention, for sure. They do. And so, but scale and localize the existing solution that we know it works well for, you know, Western languages, let's call them, but not just Western languages, even Mandarin and Cantonese and yeah, Korean, they work well for years now, quite a few years. So is it not better to use that than generative AI models? Less risk, much less cost, less complications, with a price that is not as conversational for sure. But I mean, that's the only drawback. Yeah. The other thing is, why so many products in one go? We have seen how much? Was it a dozen or about products? And they seem to achieve what? Not to do what? That is clear. That is easy. But achieve what? Will the average rural school boy or school child in India benefit from it in real terms? Will the country teacher benefit from it in real terms? Will a government official that has to train the workforce in the training that they need to do, and they don't have specialist people enough, but they do have the data, it just is not organized, but they do have the data. Will they benefit? Will a lawyer, small-time lawyer, specialist lawyer, but small-time, I'm not talking those big firms that have money and they go to Google, they pay Google and Google do the job for them and they just consume. I mean, they have no idea what they consume, but they consume. But they have the money and that's all that matters. I'm not talking about those big, huge firms. I'm talking about the myriad of small law firms that deal with things that matter in day-to-day life for the ordinary people, that is a vast majority of people in any country in the world, not just in India. How would they benefit from this in real terms, in practical terms? One big use case that they can benefit from the myriad of products, not just one product or another, that is clear. But why so many products in one go? How will India absorb that? I'll tell you how it will absorb that, my view. It will not absorb that. Google will absorb that. Google will absorb that together with all your data that they will manipulate and translate from sources because they have to do it, because it's their solution, and make that clear, is not an India solution. It may say for Bharat. Okay, but that's because Bharat is a consumer. It's essentially as exploiting your rubber by a foreign entity. You have the rubber, you know how to cultivate it, you know what it means, you know why is it important, but you cannot exploit it at scale because that's not your purpose necessarily, for various reasons. I don't know, but the reality of it. And all of a sudden you need to scale, and you cannot because you don't have the knowledge and the tooling, right? But you really understand the rubber, you really understand those plants, you really understand the environment and the animals around it. That matters. And then a foreign entity comes and exploits that rubber and says it's for Bharat, for you. You can't believe this bullshit, is it? Excuse my French. It's not really for you. It's not. So what I'm saying, you are getting colonized all over again. That's what I'm saying. I'm not joking. Different have type
I know. Yeah.
kind of
No,
colonization. That's why you have to have the power of decision in this. Yes, in partnership for sure, because Google deserve a share of that because they do work, they come with knowledge and they do work. It should not be for free, no. But it should be proportionate. You should have a say in what for and the risk and shape the design of how it is used and also the local design. That's what I'm saying. Don't just be consumers. Don't just go there and say it's for Bharat, we're gonna consume and everybody will be happy. No, nobody will be happy. I mean, most of you not gonna be happy in the end. But if you go and have a say in that, together with Google and in partnership for sure, that will be different. Yes, you're gonna do concession to Google and to other corporations, but on the other hand, you will also shape how it is used, how those concession works for you, not how they want them to work, but how you will benefit. And if you don't benefit, you can step away. If you really don't, if there's really no compromise, then you can step away. You are not locked in. If we deployed it, now we depend on it. It's that, or we go to back to square one 10 years ago, which is frankly a disaster, right? You are not getting blackmailed. That's what I'm saying. You have to have a say there. That's what you should aim for. And then all of a sudden, these dozen products will become valuable because you drive how they used. You're not told you can do this, you can do that. No, you should be told you can achieve this, you can achieve that. But guess what? A foreign entity can't tell you that because they simply detached from it all. But you can say, this is where we want to go, this is what we want to be, this is what we want to achieve. Like that kind of vision, but in practical terms. Geo, which is an Indian company, right? It's an Indian company. At least had that vision. Make it cheap for everybody. Mobile communication for everybody. I know, 100 rupees or something like that for a monthly contract, or very cheap, very cheap. But they drove that, not Google, not Microsoft, not somebody else. This is a way to do it. This is the way to do it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And those names on the products, those are India names, Bharat names, Hindi names, you name it names. What do they even mean, right? They do things. I agree with that. They do things, but what it means for the end user in the end, what it really means for their development, what it really means for their day-to-day life. If that meaning is difficult to explain, it means there's no meaning for them. Right? Real meaning, it's easy to explain, but you have to get it. You have to really get it. And then it's easy to explain in just a few words. It makes me sleep better. I don't know. It makes me keep my weight in check. It makes me, be energized. It makes me, find out things in my line of research that is so difficult to find out. And now all of a sudden it's make it so much easier. Whatever that is important and should be easy to explain. If that's a problem, then please think again what those products really are. At this moment in time, I'm not talking tomorrow. Tomorrow they may be very different, but at this point in time, that's what this is a viewpoint from outside India. Take it like that.
Yeah, I mean, we appreciate that. And yeah, but I would let Nirmal add, I think, since it's been a long exposition. So yeah, Nirmal, what do you think about
Just
it?
one more
Maybe I
thing to
think that's how we
finish
can
off.
conclude. Yeah, okay.
Nirmal
So,
Patel, we have him on the call here. When I asked the simple question, why are the user excited? He had an immediate answer.
yeah,
Why? Why? I believe why. Because he and his people that are involved in the company really get that meaning, really get that this is what we want to be, right? He did not think. He did not think. Why? He didn't need to, because the meaning is all inside him. In this case, we're talking Nirmal, by the way, it's you here, that's why we're talking Nirmal, but it's your company. They had that. That's what they were doing, all these things, because they had the meaning. That's where everybody should get these kind of things. That meaning is very, very important and crucial. Otherwise, mark my words, you're going to get colonized.
Nirmal, over to you. I think then with that, we can maybe conclude. And Kailash, I think it was a good presentation. I hope he did not down your font, but yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
So
please
shall
ask
we
them
conclude?
question, Kailash. Ask them question. Ask them task questions, tough questions to to everybody around. If they propose you something that looks great, is that really that great? Maybe it is, but tough question have to be asked. How things are running, what are supposed to do. Understand a little bit about the costs involved, because it's never one cost. It's never one cost. It's always a cost structure somehow, and that usually that may be complex. Maybe, I don't know, you have to add the questions. That could be a deal breaker. or it could be a huge enabler. It could go both ways, but that's how you're gonna understand essentially, am I getting done here? Am I taking over for a believer? am I getting essentially all my resources, knowledge, culture, and so on, and I'm getting them to siphon it out? Or on the contrary, they are great partners, and this is something that we must pursue. That could also be true. But you have to ask the tough questions because that's where it all starts.
Sure, sure. So, shall we conclude here? The time
I think
is.
we'll just have, yeah. I think I'll talk to you later for sure, but I think we have you had great Kailash, but yeah, we'll talk. Uh, Nirmal, I think we'll have you. I think with that maybe we can conclude, but I think we'll let you add some points as well, since
Oh,
Bogdan is famous for his great expositions, and sometimes it's not good to stop him. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very important to have this sort of sovereignty over this technology at this point, as you use. And if you saw that CrowdStrike news, right, where some bug crashed all these computers worldwide, now it makes you think more about decentralization in the system. And someone was commenting, I mean, I was commenting that, hey, this can happen to Tesla tomorrow. And you have all of these cars. And I think LLM hacking is going to be so important. I saw, if you see this site, I think it's called llm-attacks.org. So it's a group of researchers from CME found that you could always hack a model, could always adversarially, just pass something. And so I think it's becoming like so important to be able to control these technologies, because like Bogdan said, yeah, if you don't control it, and then if it's used for critical things. And I also feel, I think there is also one big thing where I'm seeing LLMs having issues with reasoning. And specifically, when you're from legal field, I think that which is so important, which is something LLMs don't really have right now. They may appear to have those reasoning skills, but there's so many kind of like, these tests where LLMs are showing not to have a systematic sort of predictable reasoning skill. And I think that could be a big challenge, like just like translating a legal document. I mean, what if you translate some two important sentences wrong? That might change the meaning of the document. And I think, like that's really important. You can't, like this is something where you can't just throw it out there, and specifically in legal field, I think, like where you have to be exact, and where there have been systems. I think there was a system called SIG, which was completely sort of symbolic reasoning system, right? You had no sort of neural computation, versus you have something now very different. So people are also trying to figure out new architectures to tackle this issue. So I think there is a lot to be done, and it's good. I also got to learn like how to think about this data privacy
But that's a
for
problem
others.
right there. That's a problem right there. It's all about doing and very little about being. You mentioned summarization. Well, certain things should never be summarized. Why? Because the meaning is in not being summarized. The meaning cannot be coming out of those summarization. So, since you are in India, let's talk about India. Bhagavad Gita. I had a engineer in my team, a she, years and years ago. And when she left back from to India, after assignment finished here in London, she gave me two books, presents. One was Bhagavad Gita, original text, translation in English. Would anyone in their own mind ever summarize Bhagavad Gita? That is one example of what should never be summarized. Why would you summarize that? Like you're gonna lose it all. Worse, you're gonna get the wrong messages, guaranteed. Because, there are certain things that, they're supposed to be the way they are. Bhagavad Gita, nobody knows who wrote it, right? Like all the super important books in the history of humanity, you can't say a name. This guy wrote it. No. And that means it's like so cultural, so go to the cultural DNA. Like that, like is really a crime against humanity to summarize it. Okay, there are other examples. This is one of the many examples. I'm just picking it Bhagavad Gita because you're in India and that is that. And it's also a personal example because I was receiving it as a present and it's definitely not something, even reading it on a train, it's probably very wrong. Very wrong. You really have to take your time and you don't have quota read 10 pages a day or this or that. You may not read in some day and you may read a lot more in some day. The thing is you always have to reread passages and all because the more you read, the more you understand. That's that. Do that with a summarization. It's just dumbing down big time, like really is suicidal. So this is other books as well, films, movies. There are some very seminal movies in the history of humankind. Obviously, they're all after 1900 because before you didn't have movies, but there are some very good, very like seminal movies. Would you summarize those? I have the script and this is in a few chat GPT in 2 pages, get me the meaning of this movie and the message. It will probably do a decent job, but you're gonna lose the meaning of it all because you don't experience it. That's the thing. Summarization pulls you away from the experience. It makes it fast, it makes it easy, but it makes it remote. It interferes and reduces the experience to shreds the experience, basically. That's what it does. Like all automation does that. But there are good cases for automation when that's worth doing it, and bad cases when it's not worth doing it. This is one of those cases that is not worth doing it. You have to take the time and watch Three Idiots from second one to second last if you really want to experience something that is outstanding. If you just want to get it through quick and browse, then there you go. Go quick and browse and dumb yourself down in the process. Yes. Other things, like a meeting, a very long meeting. Definitely summarize that if you may. But you can't compare Three Idiots with a long meeting, is it? It's very different use case. So that's what I'm saying. The meaning of it all is what should be driving it, not the doing. The doing, it's easy by comparison. You have so many tools that do everything, right? But what for? That's the tough part. Yeah. So that's the thing. Wherever you start doing, it has to mean something important for not just for the users, but for you that you are building it. Because end of the day, if you don't put your soul into what you build, it's not going to be that good ever, no matter how much you struggle. Your soul have to go into it. Even when you sweep the floor, even that. I don't want to eat Indian burgers because you're getting westernized. That's really my panic here. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
you
have
should,
Indian burgers. You say, well, but it's with Indian flavors and this and that. Yeah, but still,
they put, yeah, they put 40 in burgers. They have a dosa burger in McDonald's. So sad. I mean, proper Bangalorean dosa. I love it. And they put dosa into burger patty in McDonald's. Come on. So that's so sad.
it really is fooling around, right? And fooling around to a point is okay. Everybody fools around. I fooled around. But there's a
Yeah.
limit. Don't get in the habit of being fooled around because I mean, yeah, experiment with food for sure. That's how 10 million plus type of foods in India, because people they experimented so much with it that they created that variety in the end. But again, the variety was created with meaning. The people that experimented was because they had purpose. That's why they did not experiment by just fooling around. That's the thing. So you may say what that food has to do with it. Everything has to do with it. Yeah, is yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I will let Tirval speak now, and maybe we can conclude. But I think this should have a more discussion maybe in future. But yeah, so Nirmal, off to you.
I think keep at it. Definitely keep at it. Keep at the work. Keep at the but ask a lot of questions to everybody. More questions are better than less questions. Of course, listen a lot, but more questions better than not enough questions.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting technology, and I feel technology is a double-edged sword. And like you just have to, like, you look at nuclear, right? You could get, like, a lot of cheap electricity, or you could bomb things. And I think we have to be careful with the purpose. So
Yeah.
hope the Gen AI, but it's interesting. People are out there to sell it, and those who really understand, I think, will make an impact. And there is a lot to learn. I mean, I'm an experiment science kind of person. So I always look for data and evidence, and I'm after that. So
If you
we'll
look
see.
at them carefully, there's no shortage of vendors and things. They always start, the vast majority of them, they always start with, our product can help you do this and that. No, man, that's not what you need. That's not what you need. That's number two on the list. But really what you need is to get to something. For example, I want to be the best teacher in Gujarat. I'm just saying, I'm from Gujarat, I'm a teacher, I want to be the best there. How is your product help me? That's a question you should ask. Not doing what can your product do. You can read the specs, right? And you're gonna figure it out within 15 or so minutes. But can the product help you become the best teacher in Gujarat?
Okay.
Not how,
Yeah.
not exactly how. Can it? Can it? If they don't have an answer for that, or they don't have an answer, but they ask a tons of questions. If they ask a tons of questions, that's put it at the top of your vendor list, possible vendor list, because that means they go after the meaning. If they keep saying about what it does and what doesn't do, bottom, check it. There are tons of them. You can read about it. You don't need somebody to sell you. You can just get a white paper and read yourself. That's it. There's no value in them talking to you anymore. If they already have an answer and say, yes, we already work with Telangana state, and they achieved, though it's a different education, if a different type of teacher, it's university teachers, and they solved this problem by using our product. They became, I don't know, from number 100, they within 3 years they become at number 15. Just saying, that's a product right there that can really help. So it's worth investigating. That's what I'm saying. If they start with doing, you just go to perplexity.ai, ask the question. Yeah, there will be some hallucination, but they also give you links. Perplexity at AI is decent, if you are careful with it, but it's decent. And it will take you how long? Minutes to figure it out. All the sales pitch of 1 hour. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's and when it comes to you think about legalities and you say, oh, what does it even mean? Or should I be careful with that? Or I'm scared about the legal aspects. I have no idea if that's a problem or not, but I'm scared because I don't know nothing about it. Abhi Vardhan is on LinkedIn. He can guide you. He has like a team there of entrepreneur lawyers that they do. These are not people that tick boxes on an Excel spreadsheet. These are not kind of those lawyer bureaucrats. Ask them the questions. They will guide you. They will guide you.
Okay.
That's all I can say. Yeah, now I'm start getting hungry. I don't have vegetarian salads. I don't have all these
Yeah.
things. Yeah, so that is that. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Nirmal, what do you think? Should we conclude? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was good, and I hope we can do this discussion again. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, maybe something more specific can be discussed later, but I think it was a good way to begin with because again, we wanted more entities to come in, but somehow they backed out their own reasons. Congratulations. But I think in complete agreement with Bogdan, the whole idea of these sessions is to, let them demo, let them talk about their use cases, let us ask some tough questions, let us see. And all of it will be documented, not exactly a transcription, but like, much better than a summary,
But
but a
our
proper,
role is to
yeah,
support them.
yeah,
Our role is to support them. That's why all these calls, yeah, is to find out about things,
exactly.
but really about
Yeah,
in the end, the mission of that,
yeah,
of the products, of the ideas that you have, of the services that you start putting already in place and your initiatives. But in the end, the mission of that and guide a little bit through the unseen things that are important, they're just not at all obvious, and
yeah,
because of all the noise around, they are essentially invisible because of that, because they draw that's all this noise around drowns the things that matter.
yeah,
They make them invisible, but if you look carefully, you're gonna see them, but it's becoming difficult because of that. That is one of our core role here, to essentially support you in that way. You still have to do the legwork, of course you do,
yeah.
but at least guide
That
you
we
to
can't help.
avoid certain things that otherwise you're not going to be able to avoid, and they're not good.
Yeah, so I think that's the agenda for AI standardization because I think everything doesn't need to be starting with legal practices. Maybe it could be HR practice or KM practice or something like that. Then it could be a data practice, and then we can go for legal practices because we just don't know what's happening, right? I mean, uh, I think except Sarvam AI, nobody has properly disclosed their models either. We were discussing that long time back. So I think, yeah, I think it was a great session. We are ending this recording and we'll get in touch with all of you. Thank you so much. I hope it was great. And Kailash, congratulations, you did it well. Samridhi, she's not here due to network issues. So, yeah, you all did it well. So, I think we'll have another session tomorrow. So, Bogdan, I think tomorrow you will be on fire because it's on cybersecurity. It's gonna be fun. Let's see how much we can, narrow it down tomorrow. But I think tomorrow is gonna be more fun. You have Shirisha and all those. So yeah, great then.